Remember this TV ad?
I'm Joe Manchin. I approve this ad because I'll always defend West Virginia. As your senator, I'll protect our Second Amendment rights.
That was Joe Manchin's commitment. But now, Manchin is working with President Obama and New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Concerned? You should be.
Well, West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin, a gun owner and member of the NRA, now being targeted by the gun rights group for co-authoring a failed bill to expand background checks for gun purchases. This comes as the Washington Post publishes a new analysis of the 2014 Senate races with this headline, quote, "After gun bill's defeat, it's Democrats, not Republicans, paying the political price." Joining me now, Brad Blakemen, the former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush, and Bernard Whitman, who is a former pollster for President Bill Clinton and a Democratic strategist. And it is men like Mayor Bloomberg, an independent here in New York, but maybe, one of certainly the most outspoken critics of the NRA and of what he considers to be loose gun laws in the country, who is making life tough for these Democrats, Brad, going after them in their home states and saying the next time these senators want you to support them with donations to their campaigns, tell them you cannot. How badly is this hurting these Dems?
I think it's hurting it very, very much. And this economic gun to Democrats' heads, this extortion, if you will, by a popular mayor in New York will not transcend, and it hasn't transcended to the heartland of America that he thought he was going to have. As a matter of fact, Democrats have come out and said this is not helpful to them, and now we're seeing it reflected in the polls. This is an overreach on the part of Democrats. It's an exploitation of the crises we've seen in the massacres, but it doesn't fix the problem, Megan. The problem is not the gun control that we already have in America. It's the issue of mental health. It's the issue of access to legal guns. And that has not been addressed by the legislation that's been proffered by Democrats.
Bernard, on apart from the substance of how people feel on the gun debate, which is strong, they feel strongly on both sides, what do you think the impact of this is going to be? Because the Republicans need a net gain of 5 seats in the Senate to win control of the Senate. And this isn't helping. This isn't helping the Democrats fend that off.
Well, sometimes you have to pay a short-term political price to change the conversation. And the idea that Brad said it's economic extortion, when 90% of Americans support this legislation, it already is getting support in the heartland. 84% of gun owners, 72% of NRA members support it. It is common sense. It is the best chance we have, frankly, to both protect and strengthen the Second Amendment right for legal gun owners and law-abiding citizens to have guns, while making sure that we keep guns out of the hands of criminals and those who are mentally ill. And the idea that somehow this is extortion is just ludicrous. I am appalled, frankly, at senators like Max Baucus, who isn't even running for re-election, didn't get behind this bill. And if it means that some of those senators in red states are going to have a tougher time raising money because they go against the will of their constituents and the will of the American people to help protect our nation, then so be it.
Well, you mentioned Max Baucus because Mayor Bloomberg has written a letter to more than 1,000 donors. And I just quoted it in part, Brad, and he's calling out, in particular, these 4 Democrats, one from Montana, one from Alaska, one from North Dakota, and one from Arkansas, and saying they didn't rise above politics. He seems to have sort of written off the Republicans, but he's saying these Democrats didn't rise above politics, and you need to hold them accountable. Does this translate into results? Because if Mayor Bloomberg is seen as helping the Republicans gain control of the Senate in next year's midterm elections, he's not going to be very popular, and I don't think he's going to be very happy if the Republicans gain control of that body.
Well, Megan, the fact of the matter is Mayor Bloomberg is term limited. He's done as mayor. He probably does not have any national aspirations to run for higher office. So really, what is the consequence of Mayor Bloomberg doing that which he is doing? If it helps the Republicans, that's great for us, but he's doing it at the expense of his own popularity and also hurting the argument for Democrats that they're trying to make for the type of gun control that they're seeking to impose on America. But having said that, these folks who have, the senators, Democrats, who have voted against their own party, are doing so because it's not what their constituents want. The constituents that they have in the heartland of America are not the same interest that the people in New York may have or California may have.
That's an interesting point, Bernard, because will these ads work? Will the incoming attacks on them work to persuade people? Yeah, I want to throw the bums out. I don't want these Democrats representing me anymore. I want to go, with a Republican or with a Democrat who sees things differently. When that's the reason they took these votes, is because they thought that's what their constituents wanted.
Well, I frankly think that the Republican senators who are dead set against any form of gun control, and which goes against the majority of support, I suspect, in most of those states, and certainly across the nation, are likely to pay a far higher political price than a few Democrats that may have to go elsewhere for money. I'm a pollster. When 90% of Americans agree on anything, that is an overwhelming mandate, and that means all across the heartland and all through the South, support for this type of common sense legislation, which is limited, which will strengthen the Second Amendment, help keep guns out of the hands of those who break the law and those who ought not to have guns because of mental illness. That is a positive piece of legislation that Republicans and Democrats should get behind.
But it's true. You're right. I mean, we 90% of us don't agree on anything. No, I don't even agree on, who's the president of the United States. You probably get disagreement from 10% of the people on that. And yet they did get behind this bill that did not pass on background checks. Nonetheless, as Brad points out, it's sort of all politics is local. And of the 35 Senate seats up for grabs, the 10 most contested are in largely rural, very conservative states. And so there's a question about whether those voters feel the same as that 90% and whether this is going to come back. Let me go quickly because I got to go, but let me just ask you quickly. Brad, do you think that the Republicans will gain control of the Senate in 2014? I know it's too early, but just today, what do you think?
I think it's certainly possible, and add a new twist to this argument, and that's going to be the fact of the distrust of government, which is at an all-time high. 75% of Americans don't trust the government, and add that to the gun debate, and I think this will change the dynamic as we move into the Democrats taking another run at this bill.
Bernard, you agree?
A resounding no. The economy is going to continue to lift off, and I think by November of 2014, the Democrats are going to be in a very strong position. And frankly, the only way we advance social legislation in this country, whether it's on guns, on issues of marriage equality or rights for gays and lesbians, is by taking a principled stance that sometimes you have to take a short-term political hit to change the conversation and move the country forward.
That's an interesting point, too. And speaking of honesty and trustworthiness, we just got these Fox News polls in, moments ago, which we're going to bring you shortly. And wow, this is not good news for the White House. Gentlemen, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.